I hope everybody's safe and warm as people continue to get on. I'm really thrilled to get to be on today. We have standing meetings scheduled, and I don't always get on the PRLU call, but I'm just really excited to be on with you all. I hope everybody's safe and warm. And I'm glad to see that you have power for those of you who are on. The staff are working remotely today at the agency, so we're not in the office. We do have a special guest. Just a couple of quick things. I know that we have some of our regulatory check staff on. Always just want to point out to you guys, because we do this call with our licensed childcare and early education providers monthly too. But we do have a team of staff, and I know regulatory checks have changed significantly in the past year and a half. And they're very different across childcare and placement residential programs because of some laws that exist. But I just want to make sure that you all know that we're here to serve you and help you with regard to regulatory checks. So if you are experiencing any difficulty with that, please let us know. It's really all become automated. And I know, again, it's been a lot of changes for folks. There were also some new state laws that passed this past session in 21 that impacted the placement residential side. So but Brinda Burr, and I'm sure there's some other members of that team that are on, but just wanted to point that out. So if you need help with regulatory checks in your agency, let us know, let your licensing staff know, or reach out to Brinda, myself, I think Shay, and Ebony also. We'll try to get you coordinated with the right folks to do that. Ebony, if you're ready, it's about 10:03, and I think I like to stay on time because I appreciate those of you who got on quickly. And I do know we have a special guest. We have been doing some work in early childhood with our federal child care block grant really for about a decade or more. And it might be a little bit of a surprise. Sometimes grown-ups and people that are serving older children are surprised to hear this, but we have a lot of programs that have children who have experienced a lot of trauma, who are experiencing behavioral challenges in being in a program. That's kind of the best way to say it. For me, it's about social emotional disruption. Their development around their social emotional skills have been disrupted a little bit. And so it's our jobs as adults to try to help facilitate that. And so we've been doing it for quite a while. We pay for a contract with our incredible partners at A-State to do training to childcare and early childhood programs. I actually am a big fan of this, and I know that it's going to sound odd. The person who wrote this book and material and has developed it is a teacher. And we're doing it for schools and early childhood programs. But what you're going to see today is why I got really excited about it. And it's not about little kids at all. It was never about little kids for me. It's about an 18-year-old, 17 to 18-year-old, and how this changed his life. And I think when you all see the video that Leslie Corbell is going to show from A-State and talk a little bit about what we're doing, I really just wanted to offer this opportunity to you all as programs. You're not required to do this. It's just something that we're doing in this other space that I see some very parallel work with your programs possibly. And we wanted to just let you know about it. Yes, we pay for it out of childcare and early childhood funding, but we wanted to offer, and I've talked to Melissa Sutton at A-State, who is sort of the lead on this, about the possibility of offering some additional training to your programs. Again, this is just something we're offering. You are not required. I know that some of you may have gotten a copy of the book that we've shared. We've handed that out to some programs for you to have a copy of that. I will tell you individually as a parent, it's life-changing. I have grown children, and I wish I'd read it when they were tiny. I remember reading the book the first time on a flight and landing, and I had a little tear in my eye because I thought there were things that I thought, oh, I do that. I feel so good about that. But then when there were things I thought, I wish I'd known that a little bit earlier. I wish I'd known that when they were first born. So we give this book to all of our staff at the Division of Child Care. We really believe in this. It's a book that we give them to take with them if they leave us. They don't have to leave it. They can also choose to pass. People tease me that it is like the purple Kool-Aid, and it is for me. I keep it on my desk. I use it. many times when a staff is struggling with something and they come to my door, I hold the book up and say, have you read chapter whatever in that book? Because it might help you. I think it will make more sense if I just hand it over to Leslie. She's going to show the video and talk a little bit about this program. And it is just an opportunity we wanted to offer to you all. So really excited to be here. And thank you all for being on today. So Leslie, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that introduction. And it is, you know, I'm just delighted to be here to talk with you a little bit more about conscious discipline, tell you about it, answer some questions. If you were to go to the conscious discipline training in Florida, you would meet people who serve children and work with adults of all ages, not just early childhood. And so it's, like Tanya says, it's applicable to any social, emotional interaction you might have, regardless of the age of the other person. So I'm honored to be here and talk with you more about it. So I'm going to share my screen. I do have that video to show you, and I'm going to show it at the end because I want to give you some, prep you with some information and leave you with the story that this young man tells at the end of it. So I'm going to share this. Let me share my sound. I have to talk myself through all these computer things. And then we'll go up here and slideshow from beginning. There we go. So again, I am with ACE State Childhood Services. As Tanya said, we've been doing this over a decade, and I've been with the Conscious Discipline team since that time, doing the Conscious Discipline training. I can't even count the numbers of times, Conscious Discipline 2, and we're so grateful for all those opportunities. And I'm currently the lead coach for the Conscious Discipline team and work for Melissa Sutton. So, you know, it's a wintry morning, and here we are. I don't know, did you go to the store? Did you not go to the store? Do you have milk? Do you not have milk? Do you feel focused? Do you feel distracted? I want you to give me a number from 1 to 10 on how focused and present you are this morning. So you can just throw that number in the chat box if you'd like. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to do a breathing exercise. And so one that I like is smell the cookies. And I want you to watch me first, because in our breathing exercises, we want to make sure that we're getting really deep belly breaths. So I'm going to put my hand on my belly and I'm going to breathe in with my belly expanding and my diaphragm expanding for 4 seconds. Breathe in and exhale to 6. And as I exhale, my diaphragm collapses. So you'll do that with me. We're going to do it 3 times. Place your hand on your belly. Take a good, deep, slow breath in. And exhale. Take another breath in. And exhale. One more breath in to the count of 4. And exhale. Okay, so now let's revisit our numbers on that scale from 1 to 10. How focused and present do you feel right now? And you can throw that in the chat box. All right, and I hope I'm seeing that your numbers, you feel more focused right now. You feel more present right now. You know, breathing has that ability to change our state and to help us be more present and more focused and ready to learn. So that's your first little piece to take away. So here, before we do that part, I want to, another part of conscious discipline is wishing well. And so I know that the work that you do, it takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of commitment. And the work that you do is built on relationships, whether those relationships are with your coworkers, relationships with the children and families that you serve. And we'd like to take a minute to wish well someone that you are working with. So the first thing I want you to think about is someone, a coworker that you think might need some encouragement right now. I want you to pretend like you're writing that coworker's name on a Post-it note. We're going to place that coworker's name right here on this board. So I'm gonna let you pretend you have that coworker's name in mind. You've got it written down. I want you to place it right here. And we're just gonna take a moment to send them some encouragement and wish them well. So if you'll breathe with me and breathe in and wish them well on this day. Now, another thing that we're going to do is, I have a little under 30 minutes to talk with you about conscious discipline and what it might look like for you. And some of this information might be new to you. Some of it you might have heard before. Some of it might spark some questions for you. So let's think about a commitment. Are you willing to be present and truly focused for 30 minutes? Or are you willing to keep an open mind and maybe hear one new piece of information that might help you in your work? So if you're willing, choose one of those commitments and you can write it down next to you and commit to that for this next right under 30 minutes. So here's our agenda. You can see we're starting with the Brain Smart Start. Then we have our agenda. Now, the Brain Smart Start is actually what we just did. It's something in conscious discipline that they teach, helps you be prepared to learn, helps you be prepared to be in a community and work together and be productive during the day. So it has 4 components, and those 4 components were the activity to disengage stress, which was the breathing that we did, an activity to unite, and an activity to commit, and an activity to work together and go through the day. So our brain states will be our next piece of the morning. And then we're going to walk away with a go-to strategy. And we're going to close with that video where DJ Batiste will give you his story and what his experiences were when he came upon a teacher who was practicing conscious discipline in her classroom. So here with conscious discipline. So first though, what is conscious discipline? It is an evidence-based, trauma-informed approach. It's based on current brain research that is ongoing. It's constantly being updated to as they learn new things about how the brain works. It has child development information embedded into it, and it's very developmentally appropriate to all ages. It's been specifically designed, and here's the key part. It is really the only program that I am aware of that was specifically designed to make changes in the adult first, so that the adult then can go on to make changes in the children's lives. It's pretty beautiful. In 36 hours, the training simplifies neuroscience to the point, and it empowers us so that we can make this meaningful change. So it's based on a triune brain model. And by triune brain model, what they're talking about is a 3-part brain model. Now, it's very much a simplification of how the brain works. So it takes all the networks and all the interactions within the brain and all the neural firings in the brain and kind of isolates them into these 3 parts. So the first part that they talk about is a survival state, the brainstem. Now, the brainstem comes on board the moment a child is born. It's something that is shared with all living creatures. It is sometimes then called a reptilian brain because even reptiles have the survival state. Now, the thing about the brainstem is that it has 3 skills that it can do: fight, flight, or freeze. So think about it. If I were to walk outside and I saw a skink on my driveway, and I walk towards that skink has 3 choices. It can fight me, or it can fight me, or flight, or it can freeze. And pretty much every time that skink chooses to run away and scurry underneath a rock. So every living creature has this brainstem and has access to those skills. So what does that mean for a child or adult? Well, with those skills, you might see behaviors like hitting, kicking, running away, hiding, maybe a loss of eye contact, withdrawing, freezing. So we see these behaviors in children and adults, don't we? And the trigger to that behavior and why that part of the brain gets activated is because there's either a real threat or perceived threat to physical safety. So remember that when a child is in that state, or an adult is in that state, the question that they are answering is, am I safe? Because I don't feel safe right now. So the only skills I have are to fight, flight, or freeze. Now, the next part of the brain that wires up, and it comes on board with language. So the moment that the trigger, which is the world is not going my way. So the moment that that part of the brain is activated, the skills that are available there are anything on our personal past or our CD-ROM, our experiences, the language that we have heard, the perceptions that we have seen, learned, or have modeled for us, the beliefs that we've had, the mental models that have been made for us, the things that have been handed down to us. That's what's stored up in our limbic system. So that's the blue part on the screen. Like I said, the trigger to that is that the world is not going my way. And so the skills that I have are the ones on my CD-ROM, and they're going to be more verbal. So it might be something like name calling, just the verbal interactions that I might have when I'm acting from an emotional state. So again, it comes on board with language, and it's a part of the brain that's shared with all mammals. So it's sometimes referred to as the mammalian brain. Now, the next part of our brain, the prefrontal lobes, which is the green part here, that is not fully wired until the mid-20s. We're constantly, neuroplasticity, the ability of our brain throughout our lifetime, it's called neuroplasticity, the ability to form those neural connections. So here's the thing about this one. The executive skills, that's where they're housed. And they only come on board fully wired until mid-20s. That's where you get things like attention, time management, goal attainment, task initiation. And listen to these: impulse control, emotional control, empathy, metacognition, that ability to think about thinking, that ability to have that voice in our head that is reasoning with us. All of those aren't on board until their mid-20s. So the children that you work with under their mid-20s, I'm guessing, anywhere, that means your 8-year-olds, your 6-year-olds, your 13-year-olds, your 16-year-olds, your 18-year-olds, they don't have this part of their brain fully wired up. So what that means for us is that we get to lend them our executive skills. We get to access our executive skills and lend them to help them learn how to solve their problems. We can't teach them how to solve their problems if they're acting from their survival state. And we can't teach them how to solve their problems if they're acting from their emotional state, name calling. We can only teach them when they are in their executive state. So we have to help them get up to their executive state so that we can teach them a new skill. So it requires that we stay in our executive state. So I want to do a little quick question and answer. And you can unmic and give me an answer, or you can put it in the chat box, either one. So we're going to do a little interactive quiz. So I'm going to read some statements, and you can tell me if the child or adult is acting from their survival state, their emotional state, or their executive state, to help us learn to identify the state that someone's acting from. So a child throws a chair and knocks over a table. What state is that child acting from? Say, survival state, right? They are in their survival state because they're acting from their body, expressing from their body. How about a child saying curse words and calling names? What state are they acting from? Emotional state. They are expressing something based on their past experiences, how they've learned to behave in that moment. A child saying, I hate this place. You never let me do what I want. Also, emotional state. How about a child getting up and putting their things away calmly. Yeah. Executive state. How about an adult saying, don't make me come over there? What state is that adult acting from? Yep. Emotional state. Adults slamming the door. Survival state. Because they're with their body. There's no language involved in the survival state. Adult breathing and saying calmly, you were hoping you would get to read longer. Executive state. So it can just be helpful to think about what behaviors am I seeing, what skills do they have access, and what do they need to learn from this moment? What are they asking? What question are they asking? So now I want to add to that a little bit. So I want us to think about the fact that my state as an adult determines the child's state. And a child can never be in a higher state than the adult. The child will always go to a lower state. Now, if we're talking about another adult, it is still true too that my state is going to influence another adult state. Now, do I have control over a child's state, or do I have control over another adult state? And the answer is no. I do have control over my state though. And so if I can keep in mind that my state is going to dictate a child's state, I know that the part that I can work with is my state to make sure I can keep that child, help them shift up to their executive state, but certainly not shift down farther. So I want to play out some now to kind of illustrate what that might look like and what that has looked like for me in the past, because like I said, I've been doing conscious discipline for about 12, 14 years, but my children are 25 and 22. So I learned to do a new way when they were adolescents, and it made a difference. So I want to read some things here, and I have 2 cards this time. So this will be my adult, and this will be the child. All right, so adult says, oops, I dropped one. It's time to clean up. Child says no. So what state is the child in? Emotional, right? Okay, so adult says, don't start that, mister. Now the adult's in their emotional state. The child throws the book. So the child is now in their survival state. So you can see the child started out in their emotional state, but as soon as the adult shifted down to that emotional state, the child shifted to the survival state. How about this one? Adult says, it's time to clean up. Child says, no. Adult says, you wanted to read longer. Child says, you never let me do what I want. Adult says, it's hard to stop doing what you want to do. It's time to go eat supper. Put away your book. You can put it on the shelf or you can put it in the basket, which works better for you. I'll put it in the basket. You did it. You put it in the basket. That was helpful. Now we can go to supper. So I hope that kind of gives you a taste. Let me know what your thoughts on that. What did you notice about that interaction between the child and the adult and how it played out in 2 different ways? And I'm going to look at the chat box. You can chat or you can unmic and share either one. The adult stayed calm. Yeah, the adult stayed calm. The adult did not get emotional, and it helped the child to move from the emotional state to the executive state. The adult stayed in the executive state, so the child finally came to the executive state. Yeah, and so this is the part, but I'll be honest, it takes work and energy if this is not the way that was modeled for me, and was not in my personal past and experiences, it takes work to stay in that emotional state when maybe a child is triggering me. Maybe a child is doing something that causes me to want to shift down into my emotional state or even to my survival state. So there is something that we can do to help us stay in that executive state. So let's look at, so I want us to look here. Behavior is like an iceberg. So part of our ability to stay in that executive state, part of it will influence our perception of the child. So this behavior, this iceberg model, the reason we look at this is because what we see is the behavior on the top, right? We see that tip of the iceberg. If we always are addressing that tip of the iceberg and just the behavior and never addressing the underlying message, because it's essential that we believe that all behavior is communication. Behavior is simply trying to send me a message. If I can't hear that underlying message and I'm only trying to address the behavior, that underlying message goes unheard and just continues to be expressed over and over and over again. And I get caught up in this cycle of this message being sent to me that I am not hearing. So in order to practice conscious discipline, in order to stay in that executive state, I have to be willing to hear this message, to be curious about the message that might be underneath.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So would this work in an environment where there are multiple children? Like, would you use this method?
I personally would, yes. I would use this method. I would say I use this method when I go to Walmart. I use this method when I go to work. I use this method when I am interacting at home with my family. I use this method if I am talking to a group of 30 people. So I would say, yes, it's very, and I would also say it runs more, it takes less energy, and it's also less frustrating. When I am in an attitude of teaching and extending love to children all day and teaching them, rather than having to stop behavior or change behavior or manage someone else's behavior, it's a lot more freeing, really, in some way, because it's impossible for me to control someone else's behavior, but it's possible for me to teach someone something. Does that answer your questions? And if you go to the conscious discipline training, it will expand into what is called a school family and start teaching you what this looks like and how to build a cohesive school family, because the power of unity, which is one of the powers of conscious discipline, shows that there's more strength together than separate. So that's you've opened up a whole nother place that conscious discipline, yes, definitely goes to. We won't cover that here today, but yes, thank you for that question.
Thank you.
So that I can make that point. Thank you. Any other questions about that, though? Okay, well, I want to think about, our perception is a choice and not a fact. And that's something Becky Bailey says. And when she says that, I had to think for a minute, what do you mean our perception is a choice? And so last night I had a really good illustration of it. My husband and I were watching a movie, and it was an old 1943 Cary Grant movie and maybe kind of a farce. And my husband said, well, this movie's kind of agitating. And I'm thinking, no, it's not agitating. It's, it's kind of funny. It's quaint for its time. But his perception was it agitating. My perception was it was quaint. So our perception is a choice and not a fact, because who's to say which perception was right? So we can think about, that's just a superficial little story, but we can think about that idea when we're thinking about children. Is our perception of children a choice, or is it a fact? It may be based on our mental models and things that we believe, but it truly is a choice. So can we make that choice to see their behavior differently? And I also want to say that, when we see the behavior differently, it doesn't mean that the behavior gets a free pass. It just opens up an opportunity to teach. Because if I believe I can teach a child a missing skill and that they're asking me a question that needs my help, then I can teach them something. If I perceive them differently, I keep stuck in that same place, that same cycle of behaviors. And so here's another, just to illustrate that, to kind of help us make that shift. Let's picture a child at the bottom of the staircase. We can say that they're in their emotional state or in their survival state. Those parts of the brain are unconscious. We act out of those brains just simply based upon our patterns of behaviors, the things that we just shift down without even thinking about it. It's our executive state that's our conscious part of the brain. And like I said, those children, that child right there at the bottom of the stairs doesn't have an executive state fully wired. So if I can perceive that child differently and hear the message that this child doesn't feel safe right now, they're withdrawing, there's no eye contact here, they don't feel safe, and they need me to first help them feel safe, then they need me to help them feel loved, then I can get them to a point where I can teach them. So how can I do that? If that's not the way I'm first perceiving this child, I can breathe. I can stay calm. And I can ask myself, I can say this to myself. And this is really a tip that I want to pass on, because when I first began practicing conscious discipline, this was what I would say to myself, so that I could help disconnect from my own triggers of feeling unsafe in the moment, because I felt overwhelmed by a child's behavior. If I could smile, because when we smile, that muscle is not associated with threat. So it automatically tells our brain to shut off that sense of a threat. Take a deep breath and relax and say, I'm safe. Keep breathing. I can help this child with his or her problem, because they need me to teach them something right now. They need my help. So that is the first piece that I began practicing with conscious discipline, and pretty much with adolescents, not little babies, not 3 and 4 year olds, but adolescents that I was working with. That skill of composure is the very first skill of conscious discipline. And so right now we're going to watch a video of DJ Batiste, and I'm going to let him tell you his story. Can you hear?
My name is DJ Batiste, and I was born in Lacombe, Louisiana. I was raised by my grandmother. I was born to a 14-year-old mom and a 16-year-old dad, so they were young. They really weren't able to make too many decisions. I was very defiant, though. I loved to get in trouble, because getting in trouble got your attention. I was the type of student where I loved attention, and I did whatever it took to get attention. I was the leader of a gang. And let me tell you why, because in a gang, we got a sense of security and a sense of belonging. We feel like these my homies, they gonna take care of me, they got me, no matter what. So that give us that sense of belonging. Fight, that was our only option. We had a disagreement, we fought. Whether we playing basketball, playing hide and go seek, it didn't matter. If it's a disagreement, we fight. So I was raised like that, and that was instilled in my head. It wasn't no other option. You fight. You have to be violent. And I'm gonna tell you, we like to fight in school because we know we had a crowd, so we continue to get kicked out of school. We jump people. I mean, just so much violence. I never was a second thought. When it came to my head, that's what I did. If I wanted to fight, boom, I'm fighting. If you're close enough where I can put my hands on you, I'm hitting you in your mouth. That's just how I was. I did go to juvenile twice. Me and my homeboys riding one time, we got pulled over by the police. The police found some pistols in the trunk, pistols up under the seat. And we wasn't even headed to out of all the times we done had guns on us, headed to go do something, the police never stopped us. But this time we were just riding around with the guns and he stopped us. And they confiscated all the guns and took us down, took the guns, and yeah, pretty bad. It was my first day of my senior year of school, and everybody was always tell me, since you hate school so much and you're ready to get out of school, then why don't you just go ahead and put forth a little effort and finish your senior year? And I didn't look at it like that. I looked at a school as a place of, that's where I can associate. This when I can make people laugh. I can be a leader still because people want to see me. People want to follow me. I can look at girls. And if anything's going on between the hours of 8 and 3, it's going to happen in school. So I didn't want to miss it. So that was my little motivation for school, to go to school, because I didn't want to miss anything. And I walked in Miss P class, that's what I call it, Miss P class late.
My name is Donna Porter, and I teach public speaking at Picayune Memorial High School in Picayune, Mississippi.
I sat back and thought about it. When you late to something, everybody looks at you.
And all of a sudden the door flings open and this huge student that I've never seen in my life walks in and says,
"What's up?" And she looked, and I said, "What's up?" And I just had the attention of the class that fast.
My first thought is, why did this happen to me? On the first day of school when I'm trying to set the tone. And then I thought, I've got this. Thank goodness I've got this. But to be able to access my brilliance, I have to take a deep breath, stay composed, and watch him, look at his nonverbal language, because all behavior is purposeful.
She said, "Well, I noticed you're late to my room. There's no problem because you probably couldn't find it." I just kind of looked at her with this crazy look like, yeah, whatever. And then she was like, "Well, have a seat." And I looked at her, I said, "Do you have any kids?"
And I said, "Well, actually, your name is DJ, Mr. Baptiste. I have 2, and I just informed the class about it, but because you missed my room, you didn't hear. So are you married?" he said. And I said, "Actually, I just told the class I've been married for 30 years.
I stepped back and said, 30 years? Folded my arms, looked up and down and said, "Don't you think it's time for a change?" Now, at that point in time right there, I expected her to get red in the face, lose her composure, run to her desk, get a referral, write me up and send me out. I was ready for that. That's what I expected. And now that I've learned the brain seeks patterns. So that was the pattern that my brain was seeking. You be disrespectful, you get sent out of class, but you get the attention that you want. She didn't do that. She looked at me, she smiled and said,
Do you go to the doctor when you're well?" And he looked at me very funny. He said, "No, you go when you're sick." I said, "Do you come to school when you know everything?" He said, "I guess not. I guess you come supposedly to learn." I said, "Well, you've got a lot to learn and I can't wait to teach you." And then I left him with that feeling of angst. And then I said, "You know what I noticed more importantly about you? You have charisma."
Charisma? She was like, "Do you know what that means?" I said, "I'm cute." And everybody in the class laughed. And she was like, something like that. She was like, "But you just know how to work a room, And I said, I was just listening to her. She was like, she threw me off because she started talking good about me after I wanted her to be get into a power struggle with me. That's what I wanted.
And I said, "So I've been thinking in the last few seconds, I give jobs to my students in high school. Do you know anything about jobs in school?" He said, "Oh yeah, in kindergarten, I was the line leader." I said, "We don't have a line leader in high school, but we have appropriate jobs. And I usually take a week or so to figure out what job would best fit what student. I do a multiple intelligence survey, and we tell a little bit about ourselves. But you know what, DJ? I don't need to do all that with you, because you're innately designed to be a greeter." He's like, "A greeter? What's that?" And I said, "A greeter is someone that will stand at my door every morning."
As everybody come in, I get to shake everybody's hand, appropriately hug the girls. That threw my mind off. And then she said, on top of that, I get to come in front of her class and have my own session for 2 to 3 minutes. How does that sound? That's what she said. I said, "It sounds too good to be true, so let me run it back to you." I said, "So you mean to tell me I get to stand outside your classroom, shake everybody's hand who comes by, then on top of that, I get to come in front of the class and have my own session?" She was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I want to try this." She was like, "But it's one catch." And I remember I dropped my head, like I knew it was something, you know.
All you have to do is be on time.
Because if you're my greeter, that means you have to be the first one here so everybody get a chance to see you and shake your hand before they walk in my classroom. And I just remember shaking my head like, all right, I try this, you know, I see what, it's something here I can't tell yet, but it was something there, and I just remember thinking, I try this. And she said, okay, pick up your backpack that you threw down and go have a seat. And that was the first day of my new life.
Day 2, I'm standing in the hall and I see this mass of people just partying, and the only figurative language I can think of is Moses parting the Red Sea. And here comes this huge guy, and I hear these words that are so important for anybody watching this video. Everybody move out of my way. I've got to get to Miss Porter's class on time because listen, I have a job to do. I have a job to do. A disconnected child is a discouraged child. He needed to be encouraged, and every day he stood from day 2. He had been in the criminal justice center, he had been expelled from the alternative school, he had been in school isolation, out of school suspension. Nothing worked. All he needed was to be encouraged. And he became my greeter. We usually have jobs just every 9 weeks, but by a unanimous vote of the class, he became the year-long greeter because they felt nobody could do the job as well as DJ.
I feel like the experiences that I went through in my life was meant to happen so I can come back and help kids, help teachers understand. I feel like I have a gift that I need to share, a testimony that I would like to share, and I know I can help kids along with teachers. Oftentimes teachers get into it with students, they have problems with students because they don't have the skills. And I feel like anytime I can help a teacher get the skills, she has a chance to save a life. And I often tell teachers, I want you to have the same success story that Ms. Porter had. I want you to have that student that you walk down the aisle with to that graduation. I want you to have that student that say he owes his life to you. And the only reason she has that is because she had the skills of conscious discipline. So anything that's dealing with conscious discipline, I'm all for.
I'll let DJ end that with for me, but I'd be happy to stay on if there are any questions or anything else that you would like to ask me or say.
Leslie, thanks so much. I've already gotten immediate, where can I get a copy of that? So it is on YouTube, gang, and there are many other free resources on YouTube that you can use in your program with adolescents, or you can use them simply in your personal life. If you have, I think there's teens and tweens, and there's things for toddlers and younger children. There are tons of free resources. So I encourage you. I'm a big believer. I hope you guys can see why. And I think this is an incredible opportunity for us to think about the families and children that come into our lives and how we can better respond. I have staff that say, are you doing that conscious discipline thing to me? And I'm like, no, I'm doing it to myself because I too get frustrated and have to do that. So I hope you all can see. I will tell you what I tell my staff too. We show this video at every new employee orientation because forget about children. I work with adults every day, and children grow up and they develop those patterns. And I work with adults that sometimes do not have great self-regulation, and they sometimes get to that emotional state very quickly. And so for my work in the Division of Child Care and Early Childhood Education and at DHS, it's really not about children. It's about adults that I work with and helping give them the skills they need. So the tool, the book that we have, and you can probably get on Conscious Discipline website and order that. We order the books. You can order it and take a look at it. I know we've shared that with some of you, and would be happy to share the information. I tell my staff they can pass. Some people are not ready for this. It is a big change. And I will tell you, it is like learning another language. And as Leslie pointed out, she's been using it for over a decade. I use it. I have a 4.5-year-old grandson that lives in my home. And I will tell you that he will say, y'all, I need to breathe. And I need to do a star. So he's learning it in his preschool, but we practice it, and we started practicing it from the moment he was born. Like, let me hold you and breathe with you when you're crying. Let me teach you these skills of how to learn self-regulation. So I am not the person to talk to because I'm a big believer in it, but you can pass. But we wanted to give you something today that you might be able to take a small part of and think about how it might help the children, adolescents that you're serving in your program. And I think DJ is an example. There are many other DJ videos, not just this one. This is, an early video, but there are many newer ones. So just encourage you to learn. If you're interested in training, I know Ebony has some other things, but you can email Ebony and or Shay Litzy on our team, and we will get a list of those. And if we can organize some training for you all, Melissa and her team is willing to do that. But I'm really excited to share. I call it the seed planting. So I'm really excited to plant this seed today. And I hope that it will be life-changing for you, as it has for many of the people that I work with that have read the book and been a part of the training. So also, Leslie, if you could talk about the Facebook things that you all are doing that are really more related to early childhood. So please know that. But I think there's some, just so you all are aware of some of the things that are happening in the conscious discipline space.
Yes, we have Conscious Discipline in Arkansas Facebook, Instagram, and then we post videos on our YouTube. And I live up in here in Northwest Arkansas, and I have a number of elementary schools that are implementing, and I have a group of those that are starting to meet regularly. So we do plan to also be including things geared for those schools as well. And also on the weekends, we'll be having at home types of tips and things. So it hopefully you'll pick up something there regardless of the age child that you work with. And I wanted to point out too, Ebony, I don't know if you heard Mrs. Porter mention the jobs. So when you were talking about groups of children, the use of jobs is something that is a part of conscious discipline for that power of unity. Because when they talk about children who are disconnected, the consequences don't work. They don't seem to have a buy-in. They're disengaged or discouraged. So there is a big focus on creating that school family. And that was an example of that, so that children are encouraged and are connected to one another. And then you see that play out then in the behaviors and interactions amongst the children as well.
And I'll add lastly, if you didn't pick up on this or didn't realize this, DJ is a trainer for conscious discipline.
Yes.
He has been to Arkansas multiple times to a number of school districts before the pandemic. I would find out about it sometimes after the fact or the week that he was going to be in the state. I've never met him personally. Leslie probably has, but he does travel and does training. And I know he's been to quite a number of high schools have utilized him in the past, but his story is amazing. And I think he's an absolutely shining example of how this changed his life. But it wasn't because of him. It was because an adult in his life had the skill set and was able to teach him. So we'll stop there. Ebony, we'll turn it back to you. Leslie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you for giving your time today on this cold winter day. And so Ebony, we'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you.
Bye.
So I'll just be really brief. I will let you all know that I consider myself to be on a statewide tour. So my goal is to try to reach all of our residential facilities and just kind of see how things are going, offer you any assistance, discuss any possible trainings that the licensing unit could possibly help you with, and just to acknowledge the great things that are happening at your facility. We do appreciate everything that you're doing for the youth. Always remember that our goal is to ensure that they're safe and that they're meeting or getting the things that they need so they can become great independent little people or grown people. And so just to let you all know that I will say that I've been to a few agencies, and I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you're doing with your records. I've noticed that they've been very organized, and so that helps us out a lot. And we really do appreciate that. Just remember that FBI checks are required for all your staff. Those who are under DCFS contracts, remember to follow their guidelines as well. So please keep that in mind. You have to have all checks completed before those staff can work at your agencies if you are receiving DCFS funding. I think that's all that I have for myself. Does anybody have any questions or any concerns that we need to cover while we're available? Or
I do, Ebony. This is June Johnson. I always get, I guess, confused about what bubble to press when we're requesting like a child maltreatment. Let's say if it's a staff person, not someone that's not a foster parent, but a staff, a therapist or other staff person. Because I talked with Cindy yesterday, I believe, and because I put none of these apply, I pressed the last one, and she said when I do that, she's not able to see it on her end. So she said I need to press, I think 4, like potential employee or something like that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do not, but maybe Kayla or Brinda can assist.
I can answer that if you want me to.
Sure, go ahead.
If you don't, I believe it's the second bubble, and it says potential employee of a childcare facility or a placement in residential facility.
Mm-hmm.
If you push that button, that way we will be able to access it on our end from the central registry log that we get.
Okay, so even though this person is not a potential employee because this person has been employed for several years, we still should press that one.
Yes, ma'am, because it really doesn't matter how they run it because they run them all the same.
Okay.
That bubble just puts them in the category of where they get put that we have access to it.
Okay. Now, if it's a foster parent, I think it's the 4th bubble, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. The 4th bubble we can also see. We can see the 2nd and the 4th.
Okay. So those are the only 2 that we should use, the 2nd
Yes,
and the 4th bubble.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
I think that was it when it comes to those background checks.
All right, thank you, Ms. June. Does anybody else have any other questions or anything we need to address? We do have members of the regulatory check unit here, so feel free to ask away.
I have a question. This is Angela from TDCH. When I submit my background checks, I always get an error. An administrator is being notified.
Hey, I'm gonna this is Kayla Bodi. I'm the program manager with the regulatory check unit. I'm gonna put my contact here in the chat box for you. That's not an error that I have seen recently happening, but I will be happy to reach out and find out what that error is. But I'm gonna put my contact, if you'll send me an email, I will work with our IT team and we'll make sure that we get that figured out for you.
Thank you.
This is June again. I have another question regarding investigations. If there's 2 kids in the home and there's an allegation, let's say they're 11 and 12-year-olds, is that, are we required to move both kids?
Well, this is Ebony. So, of course, we always refer to DCFS if it concerns one of their foster children to kind of lead us for what they're going to do with their children.
Okay.
If it's a private placement agency, a private place child, we, of course, just need to assess the situation and gather the most information that we can to ensure that they're safe. So it'll kind of be a case-by-case scenario that we'll have to continue to discuss with the agency provider.
Okay.
Good questions. Anybody else? So I did want to ask Shay, she's our program manager for the PRTF side, to see if she had anything she needed to discuss.
Good morning. No, I don't have anything to discuss.
Okay. We do have Dawn Jeffrey. She's our assistant director, and checking with you, Dawn. Do you need anything or need to share?
No, I don't have anything. I just want to let everybody know I do appreciate what you do. I do appreciate it.
All righty. Well, Tanya, again, thank you for getting that guest speaker for us today. It was really helpful for me just in personal life. And I assume it could possibly be beneficial to those who are running foster homes or even residential agencies. You can kind of relate it to your teenagers as well. And so this is just our way of offering you whatever resources that we can find. And we hope that it's been very beneficial to you all. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or just give me a call, and I'll try to do what I can to assist everyone. So thank you, everyone. Please try to stay warm, and I appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Thank you. You have a great day too.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks.